Yes, good. Okay. So I'd like to talk tonight about impermanence. What was your experience of practicing with impermanence? Anybody? Just raise your hand and say what it was.
I liked it.
You liked it?
It's very liberating.
It was liberating.
Yeah, because instead of thinking, oh, I'm stuck in this like bad sensation, I could just, oh, there it is. Oh, there it goes.
There it goes.
Here's the next one.
Yes. Anybody else? How was it? Not everybody has the same experience, though. Doesn't have to be a positive experience.
How it's more intense at times and then it dissipates completely.
Sensations
Sensation.
in the body. Sounds also more intense
Sounds also.
and then dissipate.
I noticed my impermanence in the ability to notice the impermanence. I was just in and out of
That's good.
focus.
Yes. No, but that's also impermanent. That's why I said if your mind wanders, that's impermanence.
Yeah.
Right? Inattention. Yeah. That's good. Because once you notice, then you can go back to what you wanted to focus on. So for how many people was it pleasant to rest in impermanence? Just raise your hands. For how many people was it unpleasant? Some. Okay. Tell me about unpleasant. We've heard about pleasant, but what about unpleasant?
My normal practice is following my breath, especially the out breath. So I felt an aversion. It seemed like an interruption to be asked to do something different. So I noticed that. And that made it more difficult, or it felt more difficult.
Good to see the mind's reaction to being told do something different. So what about when you're following your breath? Is impermanence involved there?
So yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly.
You wouldn't just take one breath and stop. Right? That wouldn't.
Quality of breath changes.
Then impermanence would take over. You did that in a dreadful way. Yeah, good. This is all about radical attention. Radical presence and radical attention is our practice. To be really aware of what's going on in our mind, in our heart, let's say with emotions, and in our body. And fortunately, we have time, like tonight, to do that, really soak in it. And that's the only way we can see suffering. You saw suffering, right? Yeah, suffering arose. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But the more we practice, the more we're aware of little bits of suffering, rather than huge bits of suffering. Anybody else? What was difficult about, or unpleasant about resting in impermanence? Yes.
I was just really resisting and not liking it. I
Uh-huh.
really wanted to hang on to something permanent in this.
Something
I
permanent.
know it doesn't exist, but I just didn't like it.
That's great. Yeah. You know it doesn't exist, but you really want it. Yeah, that's wonderful. So impermanence is part of the 3 marks. And the 3 marks are the marks of every existence. Everything that exists is marked by the 3 marks. Do you know what they are? One is anicca, which is impermanence. That everything that comes into existence is impermanent and will disappear. And this is a constant flux, impermanence. And the other 2 marks are anatta, which means no self, no permanent self. Could you see that when you were watching body sensations? They're constantly fluctuating, right? So we have this, especially if your eyes are closed and you can't see your body, this question of how do you know you have a body, it's all sensations, right? just a field of sensations. And then we expect when we open our eyes, oh, there it'll be there. But you can't see your eyelashes if you're sitting here. How do you know you have eyelashes? It's what kind of sensations tell you you have eyelashes? What did you notice when I asked that question?
The memory of seeing them in the mirror.
The memory of seeing them in the mirror, yeah. Are they still there? Yeah. But they might have fallen out, you never know. But there's a little fluttery sensation, right? If you check, there's just a little light, little flutter. Yeah. So it's this constantly changing field of sensation that we call myself. And then we take it so seriously. And then we've got to defend it against impermanence. One of the teachers in Portland, in the Tibetan tradition, defined the self as defining and defending personal territory. The constant practice of defining and defending personal territory.
Personal territory.
Yeah, personal territory. Defining and defending personal territory. So that happens, if you watch that happening, as soon as you sit down on a zabuton and a zafu. Right? That's mine. That's mine. And if after kinhin, somebody else sat down in it, you'd be upset because that's mine. For what, an hour and a half? It's mine. So you can watch that process too, of defining and defending personal territory. So then the two marks are, so far, are impermanence and anatta, no fixed permanent self. When somebody shows you a baby picture, how do you know that's you? They say, oh, look, you're so cute. How do you know that's you?
Because they told you.
They told you, that's right. Right? It's either black and white blobs or colored blobs on a piece of paper, and you go, oh, that was me. And they say, oh, you're so cute, look at you drooling. So we have these little bits of maybe memories, like often, people can say, oh, the first memory I had was this, or for example, this is defining and defending personal territory. There's a picture, it's black and white because of how old I was, which is 1947. I was 2 and my baby sister was born. And we're sitting on a couch for a family photo. My father's sitting here and my mother's sitting here with baby Sue, my sister, and then I'm sitting here. But I look like this, like in the picture. And I know the reason, because I remember this sharp sense of emotion. Because my mother had said, take off your rubber pants. In those days we had rubber pants over diapers. Take off your rubber pants and we'll put them on the baby because I don't want her to wet my lap while we're sitting here taking the picture. And this indignation, I was 2, I can remember it so well. These are mine. She doesn't get them. And I also remember they took another picture of me looking at her in the bassinet. She was asleep in the little crib thing. She was asleep and I'm looking over her supposedly adoringly, but you'd only see me from the back. And I remember exactly what my emotion was. Is I just wanted to bite her. She was like so juicy and tender. I wanted to see what it was like. So that's defining and defending personal territory right there. And once you start watching it, you see it everywhere. You just see how we keep defining, this is me, this is mine, and then how we defend it. So no self is a foundational principle of all existence, partly because it's constantly changing. Like the example that's usually given is all the cells in your body are turning over quite rapidly. And then eventually we all die. And we just finished a retreat on the death of the Buddha, it's called the parinirvana of the Buddha. It means death without remainder, without any remainder, physical remainder, mental, emotional remainder. And one of the meditations we do is, I think they did it during the retreat, you were there, right? Where you just heap up all your possessions. Did they do that one? Oh, this is great. Okay, let's do it for a minute. Okay, just close your eyes. And imagine all the possessions you've ever had. So like toys, clothing, crayons, cars, books, pencils, paper, beauty products, medicines, just anything you've created, like artwork, statues, whatever, anything you bought and brought home, and you just pile it up in a pile. Imagine it's piled up in a pile. Everything you've ever owned, possessed, bought, made. And then you go forward in time. So let's say you just suddenly die right now. And all of those possessions, you're able to watch, you still have awareness, you have no agency. And you're able to watch what happens to all those possessions, especially the valued ones that you have now. So let's say there's just let's pull out the valued ones, the things you really care about. So it could be items of clothing, it could be books, it could be antiques, I don't know. Only you know. So now you've died, and you watch what happens to those precious possessions. So do family members come and take them away? Do they go off to Goodwill? And as they begin to disperse, just watch them going out. Maybe they go to the Goodwill bins and then somebody buys them and takes them home and then gives them as a Christmas present. You just watch 5 years, 10 years, 15 years after you've died, 20 years after you've died, 50 years after you've died, 100 years after you've died. What's happened to all the things that were precious to you? So what do you see? Right? Impermanence. We brought them into a heap, we wore them, we played with them, enjoyed them, and then they just all disperse. Some last longer than others, perhaps, but when you get to be my age or Mushin's age, she's done a better job of this than I have. All these things that you collected and were treasures are a burden because your kids actually don't want them. And even Goodwill and Salvation Army a few years ago just said, we can't take any more stuff because people don't want it. Old furniture, china cabinets. Who wants a china cabinet now? You're going to housekeeping, as my grandmother used to call it. It's more common to buy furniture from IKEA, and when you're done and you move, just put it out and somebody else takes it. So impermanence, and then the last is dukkha. You know what dukkha means? Suffering, right. That's a kind of strong word for it, but we all do suffer from time to time. We get sick, have a fever, we have pain, we break a leg, we suffer. But it also, actually, the original meaning of dukkha wasn't suffering, it was friction. I know some people know that, that this is a wheel and then there's an axle, and if the wheel doesn't turn smoothly on the axle, that's friction. So that's the original meaning of dukkha. So it means the friction we experience in life when we, like you mentioned, I don't want to pay attention to anything but my breath. That's friction. But through our practice, we can see it happening earlier and earlier. The practice enables us to do something about it. So we could say anxiety. Anxiety, I think, is the pervasive form of fear in our society. All pervasive form of fear in our society. Or some people have translated it unsatisfactoriness. Unsatisfactoriness. That nothing is satisfactory forever. That first glow when you get what you want, it's like so great. Or you are eating something that you really love, and then it's gone. Or the new car gets a scratch or a bump on it, and then it's just a car. Or I always tell the story on my daughter, when she was a teenager, she wanted a members only jacket. That was like the in thing when she was about 14. It just had a label here, members only, but it was a jacket. So she said, Mom, I have to have a members only jacket. Everybody does not have to have. I said, okay, Ani, if I get you a members only jacket, will you be happy the rest of your life? She said, yes. I didn't buy her a members only jacket. But that's, dissatisfaction just keeps arising, unsatisfactoriness. So those three things characterize all of existence according to the Buddha's teachings. And the Buddha said, if I have a jewel in my hand, I say I have a jewel in my hand, but my hand's behind my back, why would you believe me? So there's no such thing as blind faith or some creed we have to believe in Buddhism. The Buddha said, only if I open my palm and you can see it, and then I put it in your palm and you can handle it, experience it for yourself, then you know it's the truth. And that's how this practice works. Is we keep trying everything out, like you tried out impermanence tonight. And then you can try out defining and defending personal territory, the self. And you can try out looking at baby pictures. How do I know that's me? Or you can try out listening to sounds, which is a beautiful practice, because it takes us out of here, out here, far, far out. And it's like a kind of beautiful music. It's very interesting because my husband and I, he's also a teacher, we were doing a retreat in Florida a couple of years ago at a Sangha that does mindfulness practice. And we did the retreat on listening to sounds. And the building that they've built in is in a part of town which is kind of scuzzy, but it's beginning to go uphill. So you have, a mixture of kinds of things in this neighborhood. But a block away is a major thoroughfare, Nebraska Avenue. And then 3 blocks away is the freeway. So we're sitting, listening to sounds, and the first few days, people were really upset because we don't like that sound, right? That's bad sound. I'm aversive to sounds of automobiles day and night. But then when you start listening to it as music, that's why I gave you that instruction. Listen to it as music, then it changes. Sometimes I say, as if you had landed on a foreign planet and you heard these sounds and you have no idea what's making them. Maybe some strange musical instrument. And on the 3rd day, people began enjoying the sounds. So that's the power of our practice, to take aversion and anxiety and turn it into at least something neutral, but it could be something quite positive. And then you start clinging to sound, It's really funny how we do that. But the part of the transformation was people realizing, oh, that's a truck, it's taking food to grocery stores so people can eat. Oh, that's an ambulance, they're taking somebody to the hospital or they're rushing off to an emergency. So that it began that way, realizing this is, just because I don't like this doesn't mean there aren't beneficial aspects to it. Okay, so right now, in this country, are we experiencing impermanence? Yes. Is that causing you distress? Yes. And why? Because of the rate at which it's happening? What do you think? The rate, the speed at which things are happening, right? We feel a little bit overwhelmed because every day there's something new is announced and then something else is announced and then that changes back and then it goes back and then we don't. So we're all, many people, and we care about these people, even if we don't know them, are caught up in uncertainty. But part of it is the speed at which impermanence seems to be moving right now. We're not used to that, right? We're used to, oh, we change governments, goes back and forth all the time. But usually there's a kind of pace that we can expect. But this pace is not one we expect. It's overwhelming. So we want impermanence to happen at a certain speed. Especially if we're all like me. Like death, you stay over there for a longer time. So let's talk about advantages of impermanence. What are the advantages of impermanence? You can just say anything that comes to mind.
It allows for young people to take our place.
Yes.
And they have a chance.
They have a chance, right? Yeah, so generations can make fresh starts.
Being content with the present.
Being content with the present. Yeah. If we can be content with the present, or we can have an underlying contentment with the present, no matter what's happening up here. The Buddha said, don't get involved in politics. He was very clear about that. Do not get involved in politics. Because it's just like, in this way and that way, and the change, and we lived through Nixon, and we lived through Reagan, and we lived, back and forth, all the time. But now it's like a whiplash. So we don't like that, it's too fast. Other advantages of impermanence.
Creativity.
Creativity, yes. So give an example from your life.
Something becomes out of whatever is
Yeah.
here.
Like paper and paint and a brush.
Each moment just becoming itself.
Yes, each moment becoming itself. Can you imagine if we're all frozen in time? Can you imagine if bodies didn't decay? What would happen? There'd be dead bodies like piled up. We'd be walking on dead bodies. Other advantages of impermanence?
We get to learn things.
We get to learn things. We get to learn and grow, change. Yes,
We get to play.
we get to play. Give me
Thinking of like, if you had a bunch of Legos and all of them were in a certain shape,
permanently.
broke them apart,
Right.
you wouldn't get to build anything new.
No, you wouldn't. That's right. So you watch this, you'll see it everywhere. So there's a cute little baby, The cute little baby is so cute. Oh, I don't want him to grow up. So on the one hand, we don't like impermanence, but then they do grow up and they become terrible twos, toddlers, and then it's like, ugh. And then they're nice again, and then they turn into teenagers and it's ugh. And they don't become who we thought they were gonna become, right? So, we like impermanence and we don't like impermanence. But that's just added to what the fact is. That's the suffering or joy we add to the fact of impermanence. So in Buddhism, we get right down to the bare ground and just watch what's happening in here and in the world. So right now, impermanence is fast-paced. But think of living in a South American country where there's a coup. Talk about impermanence. The government changes rapidly, and then, a worse example than what we're worried about here happens. People get killed because they belong to the previous regime. Big crackdown, a lot of people put in prisons, tortured, and so on. So we then understand when we see our aversion to impermanence in the current situation with government change, then we understand why immigrants are fleeing countries where impermanence is not going the way anybody wants it to go, or not going the way half the people want it to go, and it's causing a lot of harm. And there will be fallout here, definitely. There will be people suffering. And that makes us suffer because we have open hearts and we care about other people. But what can we actually do? What can we actually do? That's what we have to ask. Because if we suffer because of impermanence, then that just adds more suffering to the world, right? So this is not easy to understand and hear these changes that maybe we don't like, but other people like them. There's a group that really likes it. So are we right? Are they right? But what can we actually do besides not letting it make us suffer? There are things we can do, right? Simple things that we can do. The Dalai Lama said, if you can do something about it, do something about it. If you can't, let it go. But we have the right to vote. So there is that very important thing we can do. And we just had a visit. The monastery is in this little, very conservative town where people fly Trump flags, and down the road somebody had a F Biden flag flying. But we just had a visit from Suzanne Bonamici, who's our representative in Congress, in the House of Representatives. She came a week ago. And then Jeff Merkley, all of us have him as a senator if we live in Oregon. And he came last night and did a town hall in Klatskanai. And I had everybody, all the young people and everybody at the monastery go, because it is so inspiring to see people who are our elected representatives, we voted for them, and that they really care, and they're working really, really hard. To try, they said, the judiciary, we're out of balance in terms of the balance of powers right now. And they're counting on the judiciary to kind of hold the line. Whether we can count on it or not. But that's what they're working with right now. And then elections are coming up. So we have the ability to vote. But we have to be realistic about where can we help. So where we can help is right in front of us. Somebody once asked my father, who was a pacifist in World War II, because he didn't want to kill anybody. And that was a very unpopular position. And then his first teaching position was in an all-black college in the South. So my first playmates were all black children. And the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan, was active at that time and burned crosses across the street from our house. So that was a pretty difficult time. So, but somebody once asked my father, there's so many things that where places where we could contribute money or do something, what should we do? And he said, do what's right in front of you. So that means things like we carry in our car some dollar bills, and we also carry, this is me and my husband, and we carry a box of soft granola bars, because a homeless person once told us, I can't eat this, I don't have teeth, because it was a crunchy one. So you got to buy the soft ones. And they have, strawberry filling, kind of nice. And then if you get hungry when you're in the car, you can have one too. But that's something you can do when there's somebody on the corner asking for help, is give them food. And if you want to, give them $1. But people get all tied in knots. Like, is it a scam? Are they really homeless? Or they got their child with them? That's terrible. And people do. For some people, it's a scam. They make hundreds of dollars every day if it's pitiful enough. But we can't let that stop us from just offering food. I had a funny thing that happened because I was into offering food. So, I went to Fred Meyer to shop for food, and there was a homeless man sitting outside on the bench, and he looked cold and hungry. And so I went in and I thought, what can I get him to eat? And then I got macaroni and cheese. He probably liked that. And then I can't remember what the other thing I got was, maybe some cookies. So I brought them out like, Princess Grace. Noblesse oblige. I brought you some food. And he takes it and he opens it up and he says, I can't eat this. It has too much selenium in it. Selenium. I thought, caught me. He caught me. Because I'm into my, generosity thing. And he's like, here, give it back. And so then I had this macaroni and cheese. I had to decide what to do, whether I would eat it or not. That was great. But that's the sort of thing you can do. And sometimes I'll ask if, like I'm walking around and I see somebody who's homeless, I'll say, are you hungry? And there's a place over there, would you like McDonald's or French fries or what would you like? And then they tell you what, and then you can give it to them. In our town, because it's very poor, there's a food bank. So we always buy extra food for the monastery, and then we give some to the food bank, oranges and things that will last. Or we ask them, what are you low on? And they'll tell us. Like last time it was spaghetti sauce in jars or cans. Because they know who comes in and what they'll eat. So we don't give them kale from our garden, because it's not a popular item. And then it was discovered that in our schools, a number of kids, elementary school kids, were going home and there was no food on the weekend. So then with the help of the Kiwanis Club, which my husband joined in our little town, they set up a food cupboard in the school. Because it turned out that when the elementary school kids got food for the weekends, the high school kids then said, we also need food. So they established a food cupboard so any kid can go and take food and put it in a backpack and take it home. And at our temple in Portland, we have a backpack program for the nearest school, which also serves a fairly poor population. And there's a whole list of foods that can go home for the backpack program. And so we donate those and give those to the school. So food is one. There are many other examples, like White Stork. White Stork is for Ukraine, and it's for little first aid kits that they can take out into the battlefield, and it has all the necessary supplies for stopping bleeding. Because that's the main way they can save lives, is stopping bleeding. So if you look on Instagram, it appears on Instagram, White Stork. Give money for these kits, little kits. For Christmas, I don't give my grandchildren presents on Christmas or their birthdays, because they get a ton of junk. good stuff too, but there's also a lot of junk down in the basement now. But what I do is I say, I'm going to give you dollars, or up to $100, but you have to give it to a charitable organization to help other people who don't get Christmas and don't get birthday presents or need something. And so it's because of their age, it's a little complicated for them to figure that out. So I send information on 3 charities. One is SIVA. SIVA does operations to restore eyesight overseas, mostly in India, but other places too. So cataract removal and also eyeglasses for all ages. And it's free for the people because of donations. So that's one. And now these organizations have very touching video about people whose sight is restored and they're just so joyous. So SIVA, Smile Train. Smile Train repairs cleft palates and cleft lips and they have really very touching videos, touching me even to think of them, of kids who are born with a cleft lip and a cleft palate and are ashamed to go to school and get bullied all the time, or wear a big bandage over the cleft and can't speak because of the cleft palate, can't speak normally. So through Smile Train, you can give money and they can have a free cleft palate repair, and just the after pictures of them beaming and talking is so sweet. So that's Smile. And then this year we did Water Aid. So Water Aid, it was in Malawi, which actually our oldest son was born in Malawi. There's an organization, it's actually LDS, Mormon organization, that drills wells. And they have pictures of girls who have to wake up an hour early to go get water from a dirty water hole and bring it back in buckets before they go to school. And now they have a well, and they turn a faucet on and they have fresh water. And they also installed bathrooms in their schools because they didn't have toilets in the schools. So there's lots of organizations once you start looking. And that's a direct way we can help relieve suffering in the world. Because there are people who are suffering way more than we are around the world. There are 44 wars right now, major wars going on around the world. So that's us do something to help with the world's suffering, even if we feel kind of hopeless about right now what's happening, until things smooth out a bit and we see what's happening in our country with these very, very sudden changes. And you never know, advantages can come out of things that seem like, oh no, this is terrible. You never know. Those of us who have gray hair, we know that, right? And I'm sure you have examples. One example I gave is when I was working in a clinic at Emmanuel Hospital in Portland, there was a man who was a nurse practitioner there. He's just a wonderful, kind person. The kids just loved him. And his girlfriend of, I think, 6 or 8 years left him. And he was just a wreck. I mean, it was so upset and so sad that she had left. You can't say this at the time. There might be a bright side to this. Just wait, because people have to suffer when they're suffering. We have to hold them and cherish them, help them when they're suffering. Even there's not much else we can offer except for listening to them. But then about 2 years later, he got another girlfriend, and she was so much better than him. And they got married, and they've been happily married ever since. So you just don't know how things will turn around. And I predict there'll be some really advantages and good things that will come out of this change that right now is so, and it seems like it's harming so many people. But we won't know unless we live long enough. So do you have any questions? These three are all, of course, intermingled. Impermanence, suffering, and no self. I think I kind of gave you that idea. Yes, go ahead.
I think it's easy to feel that what we can do is actually a lot more than what we think we can do, and therefore we should drop, everything. I could drop out of college, give up on everything I'm trying to do, and devote myself to something that seems like, on the face of it, will help more people, will
Yes.
ease the suffering of more people.
Yes.
I have not done this. It feels like it will cause me a lot of suffering to give up on what I feel I am called to do. And I wonder what you think about that.
What do you feel you're called to do?
To make things, to engineer, to build physical things. I just like doing that feels so different than anything else for me.
Yes.
But it's just making things, so many.
Just making.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So I'll just give you an idea in terms of charities where people have made things. So 2 college girls decided that having light in homes that had no electricity was really important. And so they invented this, it's a balloon, and it has a solar panel. And now they have it so that you can plug your cell phone in, because a lot of poor people have cell phones around the world. That's how they communicate, right, with the world, and run little businesses and so on. So they give them away free. So then students in poor countries can read their books at night because they have light in the house. And then there's a thing called Life Straw. So Life Straw is a filter, so you can take muddy water and it filters out all the microorganisms and all the dirt. So it turns it, so you can actually dip up water and put your straw in and get clean water to drink. And they also give them away, by the thousands. And then, of course, we had the people who engineered the well in Malawi, right? So not all of us should do the same thing. There's plenty of suffering to go around. That's partly a joke and partly not. Actually, my husband said this because in Portland, there were new Dharma centers springing up. I don't know, how many Dharma centers do you have in Corvallis?
Maybe 4.
That's not so many. But Portland's bigger, so there's more. But, after you've established your little temple and you have your little sangha and so on, and then somebody else moves in, like down the street, and then you're kind of like, I don't know about these people. But, so that was happening. And my husband said, there's plenty of suffering to go around. But if you're following your passion, it will turn into something beneficial. Definitely. And if you're trained, then your opportunities to help are much more than if you're not trained. How are we doing for time? It's 20 past.
Yeah, we're probably ready to wrap it up a bit.
Okay. Impermanence strikes again. We're going to end this. How do we end it?